Good morning. The new inheritance tax for farmers is less than a month away, and tenant farmers are still lobbying for changes as they fear the tax is forcing landlords away from offering long-term tenancies.
Over the past 10 years, we've lost something like 10,000 farm business tenancies. We could see that increase if landlords do not feel that they are confident to be able to let land, given the tax changes that they are going to be facing.
We'll have more about that in a moment. First, though, all this week we're talking about fertilisers. For decades, farmers have used sewage sludge or biosolids as fertiliser. That's from the waste that comes from us after it's been cleaned up in water treatment plants. Compared to imported artificial fertiliser, it's very cheap. It can even be free. But there's concern that sewage-derived fertiliser may contain microplastics, pharmaceuticals and some so-called forever chemicals. The government's launched a consultation about the rules on testing, and they're proposing to tighten the controls on sewage sludge on farmland. Scotland introduced tighter rules a few months ago, and Wales is also looking to reform. It's a dilemma for farmers like Will Oliver in Leicestershire, who feels it's a good use for something that would otherwise be wasted.
This is an organic manure, an organic fertiliser that really helps us put nutrients back in the ground, helps lock carbon, and it's just a really good product to help us grow crops in a sustainable way. If I can't use this, if it's a barrier to entry, then it's compromising how I can perform as a farmer. The alternative to me using this sewage sludge is buying in artificial or imported fertiliser in a bag, but it's expensive. This is here available for us to use.
Farmer Will Oliver. Journalist Tom Heap has been looking at this for BBC One's Country File. He told me why the sludge is causing concern.
Well, there are a lot of things you hear about in the media at the moment. So let's start with microplastics. That's one of them. They're now worried about those tiny particles that might be coming off anything from carpets to the clothes that we wear to various industrial processes. Then you have the forever chemicals, often referred to as PFAS. These are things that you find in fire retardants, also in clothes, also in cookware, also in industrial processes. And it's worth remembering that the sewage sludge is often a mixture of domestic waste and industrial water as well. And the other thing that can come from us is pharmaceutical chemicals. These are often the so-called endocrine disruptors, that things can have an effect on our hormones, along with pharmaceutical drugs, things that we might take for our own well-being. So it's a bit of a cocktail. And the problem is that the only things they're really testing for are heavy metal, things like mercury and cadmium and things, and they're not controlling for these newer worries, in effect.
These products are getting into the sewage sludge because they're not being screened out.
Yeah, that is right. And that's one of the questions, is if you start testing for them, then what are you going to do about them? And I think this is one of the big questions facing the government, the water industry, and arguably the producers of these chemicals themselves, is if we find the actual levels and where they are and more precisely where they're coming from, what are we going to do about it?
Is there any potential impact on crops or the environment?
Well, that is the big question, and it's one of these unknowns. It does seem that there can be some movement into crops and certainly into the water environment. So water and river campaigners are very worried about this. But as yet, I think what is definitely lacking is clear evidence of threat to human health via the food we eat from this. Now, absence of evidence, it doesn't equal evidence of absence. So we can't say there isn't a threat, but there isn't an obvious threat. And I do think in this story, it is worth remembering that in principle, using a waste product as a fertiliser is fundamentally a circular economy good idea. It has been the foundation of fertiliser, for ever since we've been growing crops, really.
The government's looking at updating the rules, so there must be some concern.
There is concern, and the Environment Agency has been warning about this for close on a decade now, that they think we ought to be finding out the size of the problem, doing the research, and then seeing if there's something that we should be spending hundreds of millions, and that is what it would cost, whether we should be spending that kind of money. there is a strong argument actually from the water industry themselves that they actually gave us a quote for Countryfile. We need a national plan to remove these forever chemicals, these PFAS from the environment, and it should be paid for by the polluting manufacturers. So they are saying that if there is a cost to this, it should come from the manufacturers of these things. It shouldn't fall on them and then indirectly us as water bill payers.
Tom Heap. You can watch his report from Sunday's Countryfile on BBC iPlayer. Livestock farmers have to be willing to be very hands-on, but what if they're tackling jobs with animals which need some technical expertise? Especially for a young farmer, knowing how to carry out routine but sometimes invasive practices can be challenging. Well, now a farm vet practice in Gloucestershire is offering free workshops for young farmers groups to spend time with their vets, asking questions and taking part in practical workshops. Marie Lennon went to Tyndale Vets for one of the sessions.
It's out of hours at this farm vets practice, but the place is filling up with dozens of young farmers travelling in from across the county. They're fuelled by crisps and sweets, but this isn't just a social get-together.
Right, everyone, listen please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Hemingway-Arnold. I'm one of the vets at Tyndale. We do various evenings throughout the year with different young farmers clubs around Gloucestershire and surrounding counties. So the plan tonight is we have some lambs that have passed away, unfortunately, that we're going to use for a bit of a lambing practical. We're going to practice putting castration rings on them, rings on their tails, practice tubing them, basically anything that they can have a go at home with husbandry, but obviously in a safe environment, and they can practice skills that are going to be life-saving and useful for them in the future. We'll have a go at a lambing simulator.
And they can ask questions as they go, I guess?
100%. It's all guided. We've got plenty of members of staff here tonight that know what they're doing. For the people that are absolute beginners, just having a go at, pulling a lamb out, feeling how it feels. Quite a lot of the young farmers here tonight will have their own lambs at home and their own sheep, so just giving a bit of the more difficult presentations that they might not be able to correct at home, or they might not be confident doing.
Let's be clear, you've probably had a really long day already at the practice and you're doing this in the evening. Why is it important for you?
I love doing these young farmers evenings. I am a young farmer myself. Give them some education, really. I am just constantly inspired by how keen they are, how accomplished they are. It's crazy the amount of knowledge that a lot of them have, and all of them are really, really keen to learn more.
Came out for a bit of a laugh and just going out with young farmers, seeing people, having a bit of a socialise, maybe learning something. We don't all work with sheep and we don't all do everything, we don't all do the same thing, so yeah, just come out and do something really.
Good to go and be social and go to the pub after, have a pint after a long day.
Anything you want to learn this evening? Anything that you've got questions about?
Learning how to do things properly, because even though we learn off our parents and stuff, sometimes it's not necessarily the right way to do stuff, so learning things how it should be.
You tell me what you're doing.
Over the legs.
Yeah, over the scrotum, and then you press down on that bit there to sort of encourage the testicles into the scrotum.
It's difficult.
And then you squeeze. Have you got two?
Lexi, do you farm around here?
Yeah, on a dairy farm. I'm the secretary of the Young Farmers Club, so I've organised all the meetings so far for all of the young farmers, and hopefully they've all enjoyed them so far. Obviously farming is quite a lonely job, so some of them don't only work on farms, they don't go to school or anything like that, so it's a chance to get out of the house, meet some new people, have a bit of fun and get to learn new things that you might not necessarily learn on your farm.
How important is that relationship between you as farmers and your local farm vet?
Oh, it's really important, because once your cow's down, they're needed, aren't they? There's always something that they can help with, even if it's something small like your chicken can't lay an egg, or if your cow's down, they're always there.
That was Lexi from Wootton and Dursley Young Farmers Club. Now, it's less than a month before the new inheritance tax comes in for farmers. Today, the government's finance bill reaches the report stage, which is a last chance for any amendments to be considered. After a government U-turn at the end of last year, the tax threshold was increased, but there are concerns the policy still doesn't give tenant farmers who don't own their land the same advantage. George Dunn is the chief executive of the Tenant Farmers Association. He told me why tenant tenant farmers still have concerns.
So, Anna, there are two issues, and one is a direct impact and the other is an indirect impact. So the one which is a direct impact relates to circumstances where a tenancy might be held jointly by two or more individuals. And if one of those individuals dies, then effectively the other joint tenants inherit their share of the tenancy. And up to now, that value has been relievable through agricultural property relief from inheritance tax. But now that will fall into an assessment for inheritance tax for those tenants who are taking that share of the tenancy from the deceased individual. The second area is where the landlord is subject to inheritance tax. And we are hearing that landlords are beginning to remove land from the marketplace. We're hearing that landlords are beginning to offer shorter lengths of term than they might otherwise have done in order to ensure that they have the assets close at hand to pay any tax. So our members are beginning to suffer by having either no tenancy available to them or a shorter term tenancy available to them. And we're therefore trying to convince the government to make some changes that will incentivise landlords to offer agreements on a long-term basis if they can have the value of that land on a free of tax basis.
Both of those things have been put in as amendments, haven't they? You know, there's not much time, is there? Because this actually does come in on the 6th of April. How sure are you that changes could be made?
Bear in mind that we weren't expecting the government to move on the spousal transfer issue, which was on the list of things that we wanted. We didn't expect them to come forward with a higher threshold than the £1 million they originally suggested, increasing it to £2.5 million. So these things can happen relatively quickly if there is a will. If they want a vibrant tenanted sector, these changes are absolutely necessary.
Have you had figures for how many longer term tenancies might be ending or how much land has been taken out of tenanted work for tenant farmers by estates? Do you know exactly what the situation is?
We don't know exactly. Obviously, we receive information from our members on a day-to-day basis about what they're experiencing. We haven't done any survey work of our own, but we are also receiving contact from landlords who are on private estates who are telling us this is exactly what they're having to do. We don't have any hard and fast numbers, Anna, but we have got lots of anecdotal evidence.
How worried are you then about the future of tenancies generally?
We are concerned about the future, Anna, because we've been on this case for a long time, even before the government decided to make any changes to inheritance tax. We've been saying that longer term farm tenancies needed to be incentivised, with landlords having the ability to have the land value that they are renting for long term tenancies on a free of tax basis. This change in inheritance tax could have very, very serious consequences for the let sector as a whole. We've already seen in DEFRA figures that over the past 10 years we've lost something like 10,000 farm business tenancies. And even over the past couple of years, the number of farm tenancies is reduced by 6%. So unfortunately, we could see that increase if landlords do not feel that they are confident to be able to let land in the marketplace, given the tax changes that they are going to be facing.
George Dunn, Chief Executive of the Tenant Farmers Association. That's all from us today. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Marie Lennon. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.